So you have an image that you're starting to work on and you want to deal with a bunch of different things. So we'll quickly go ahead and get the white balance correct, and then we'll go in and we'll pull down, we'll go ahead and reset this. So we'll pull down the blacks, kick up the whites, pull down the highlights. It's giving us some good feel there. Exposure itself isn't bad, brightness isn't bad. We could kick the saturation up just a smidge, don't want to overdo it. So those are your basic adjustments that you always go in and do. Obviously, you can work with levels or curves, whichever other things you want to work with. If you want to tinker with the colors, obviously you can do that too. But one of the things that a lot of people don't really think about when they're working with an image is whether or not it's actually got clarity and whether or not it's actually been sharpened. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Refine panel. And under the Refine panel, we have the Sharpening tool. Now, by default, sharpening is applied to an image when it's brought in because the camera basically did that based on whatever JPEG style preset you had set up in your camera, your picture styles. If you had chosen vivid, or if you had chosen landscape or portrait or standard, whichever one you chose, a certain amount of sharpening is applied. And so the raw file actually does get that same amount applied. So here's the image, it comes in. But if we want to, we can go in and sharpen some more. So what we'll go ahead and do is we will zoom in on the image so that we're zoomed at 100%. And once we're at 100%, then we can go in and take a look at whatever it is that we're worried about the detail. Now, in this image, the focus is interesting. It is a tad bit sharper towards the front than it is towards the actual Barca Lounger, or whatever you want to call this thing. Easy boy. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add some more sharpening to it, and basically you do that by clicking the slider and dragging it over. If we go too far, it can become very apparent. As you can see, the flowers down here got all kind of weird, and the edges to the flowers get cartoonish, almost like they've got a cartoon outline. So when you're using the sharpening, you want to use it very sparingly, but you might want to go a little too far and then come back. So for example, I might just take this up to about 300, take a look at it, see what it's doing to the flowers. If I don't like it so much, I can go ahead and bring it back down. You can also spread out the radius in terms of how much it actually sharpens, but you have to be careful because if you go too far with the radius, same thing, it kind of gets funky looking. So I find that with the radius, I tend to maybe only go to like 1.2 or so. And then the threshold, same thing. You can go too far with the threshold, and what it does is it distorts the sharpening on only the image's area that is actually sharp. So once again, you have to kind of be careful with that. So in my opinion, it's more 0.8, 1.2, something like that. Anything more than that, it gets a little bit crazy. If you do go too far with the sharpening, or if you feel you really need to go strong with the sharpening, you can also go in and reduce the halo effect, because that's where you get that black definition line around the edges of where you have tonality changes in the pixels. So if you go in and pull up the halo suppression, that will actually pull that back a little bit. So it's a pretty powerful sharpener. It's actually a little bit stronger and a little bit like more robust than you would find in Adobe products such as Camera Raw or Lightroom. And then you can also, if you find that you have a certain amount of sharpening you will find yourself always doing, you can save it as a default for your actual camera. And then once you bring in an image, anytime you want to do that, you can apply the default for the camera itself. Anytime you save one of these defaults for the camera, if you don't like it, if you find other images doesn't work so much, you can once again go in and undo that. As always, this tool can be moved up to the pinned area at the top if you want, up near the navigator. But for the most part, I always leave them in the scrolling area. So there's sharpening for you.